Welcome to Roundhouse Roulette, a Walker, Texas Ranger podcast. Thanks for joining us as we recap and review one of the 200 existing Walker, Texas Ranger episodes randomly selected by Roundhouse Roulette. I'm Evan Dalton, here with my brother Adam.
What's going on?
And a man who dreams in sepia tones, Mr. Bob Leahy.
Oh, I do. What's up, guys?
Oh, man. Well, we'd like to thank you for joining us as we review Chuck Norris's trip into the Old West, I would say. Today, of course, we'll be recapping and reviewing Last of a Breed Part 1, which is Season 6, Episode 6, in which Chuck Norris decides to play a different character on the show. Hayes Cooper, a Texas Ranger from the past. Before we jump on our stagecoach in our buckskin leather, join us as we pull up a stool at CD's Bar and Grill. Fancy meeting you guys here. You guys digging my radio voice so far?
Sounds great.
Well, what does CD have on tap for us this week?
This is quite the can here. This is a brew from Keen's own, I'm going to call them Modest Men.
That's the brewery?
I would think it'd be Modest Man, but I like the cut of your jib.
I call him Spider-Man.
Yeah, Tom Spiderman.
So CD traveled up to Keene, New Hampshire for this, apparently.
Yeah, he's actually a really big fan of the movie Jumanji. And he wanted to see some of the original set pieces from that 90s version of Jumanji. So,
wow. Okay.
So anyways, this is a double Berlune or double balloon.
What is that?
No idea. It's a double IPA.
It looks like an acid trip on this can here.
It sure does.
But it's an artful acid trip.
Let me tell you, it'll be a trip across your taste buds as well, because the tasting notes on this include Mosaic and Galaxy hops. You should expect to taste juicy tangerine, passion fruit, mango flesh, not the pit, the flesh.
Oh, good.
Floral, and this has a creamy mouthfeel apparently. So let's crack this baby open and see if there's truth in advertising tonight. Oh, I smell some passion fruit here.
Oh, yeah, seriously. I tell you, it smells good.
It does smell really fruity.
This is
Oh,
legit.
very grapefruity.
I'm liking this. I'm digging it. People, let us know how many you guys like or hate when we have a beer at the beginning of this. You're like, guys, just stop drinking beer. We want to get to our Walker. Or do you guys enjoy three idiots talking about beer when they don't know what they're talking about? So let us know. Well, before we get going here, guys, I think we got to acknowledge that we lost somebody again in the music community who just so happens to have been born in Fort Worth. Of course, we were talking about losing Foo Fighters drummer Taylor Hawkins this week. He just seemed like a cool dude.
I always thought that he must have had a pretty hard time playing drums in a band of one of like the most famous rock drummers out there, Dave Grohl, who played drums in Nirvana. So to step in and play drums in I would say a band of similar acclaim, more power to him for not shying away from that.
I feel bad for Dave Grohl, too, because I've been seeing all these interviews lately that they've done, and like they were like best friends.
And they built up the Foo Fighters to an arena act?
Yeah, I mean, have you seen the shows they do lately? Like Taylor Hawkins would get up front and they'd sing Queen songs, and like it was a whole event.
They became essentially a dynamic duo, so I don't know if the Foo Fighters go forward after this, honestly, because he was that big a part of that group. Well, moving on, while we're still at CD's Bar and Grill, we look who just came in the door here.
Is this dog an Instagram celebrity?
This dog that appears to be at CD's Bar and Grill dressed up like Walker, Texas Ranger, and his name is Brockus.
Yeah, this is Mini Brockus. Mini Brockus is a miniature dachshund, short hair, not to be confused with the long-haired or wire-haired variety. He's got a pretty dope cowboy hat on and a little bit of a denim shirt with a deerskin vest of sorts and a Texas Ranger badge. Is this photoshopped or is this real?
Oh, I mean, this is real.
I'm pretty sure it's real, yeah.
Yeah, if you go through Mini Brockus's profile, there's plenty of other pics, but what does Mini Brockus have to say here?
have been deep diving into Walker, Texas Ranger and listening to at Roundhouse Roulette podcast. So we knew it was about time to take advantage of this ginger facial hair with a Chuck Norris cosplay. Because the eyes of the wiener are upon you.
Ooh.
Any food you drop, he's going to see. When you're in the kitchen, look behind you. That's where the Brackus is going to be.
Nice.
I think Mini Brackus has 3 new fans now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally. Listeners out there, you have to check out Mini_Brackus, BRAKKUS on Instagram. And he's got some sick threads. You gotta check it out. And apparently he listens to Roundhouse Roulette, so shout out to him.
Brackus, you raucous.
But before we jump into the episode here, and we're still hanging out at CDs, why don't we jump into the mailbag here? It's been a while. We got to dust it off.
Man, we hear from Kenny, superfan Kenny.
And patron.
Excellent.
He is complicit in Roundhouse Roulette. That's how big a Walker, Texas Ranger fan he is. He helps us keep the lights on. We asked everybody online, like, what do you all think of the Sons of Thunder era of Walker, Texas Ranger? Because we just finished up the Sons of Thunder Part 1 and Part 2.
Oh, Kenny says he likes Carlos and Trent as characters. And he agrees that Trent comes across as pretty dorky. And Carlos, obviously more down to earth, a bit more relatable. But Trent's fight scenes kind of make up for his character shortcomings, which is absolutely true. I mean, particularly when he throws someone in the Boston Crab or roundhouse kicks Gary Busey.
Yeah.
He also has one up on us in that he's watched the entire Sons of Thunder series, and he says it's absolutely terrible. But, he loved it as a Walker superfan, and I'm just going to throw it out there. I'm super jelly.
For people out there who don't know, you can send us an email at roundhouseroulette@gmail.com or through our website, roundhouseroulette.com. And we don't get enough of them. And we actually got one this week.
This is awesome.
Yeah, looks like a friend of the pod, Jeff, wrote in, said he loves the podcast. Just wanted to point out that there's a scene in The Return of LaRue where LaRue has the guy beat him up and claims Walker did it. Is a blatant ripoff from Dirty Harry.
I didn't. I don't know.
Totally
if I've
blanked
seen,
on that.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen Dirty Harry, so I probably should watch that.
You should watch it, man. But only watch it if you're feeling lucky.
I mean, we see this from time to time, right? I mean, Walker may borrow certain themes from other,
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, he even steals from his own movies.
Oh, yeah.
but yeah, no, thanks for pointing that out, Jeff. And for those listeners out there who haven't checked it out, we just did a podcast on Return of LaRue, and that's what this is in reference to. LaRue, the bad guy who was amazing. But Bob, what else does Jeff say there?
He says he loves the podcast, says he can't wait till we get to the episode Skyjacked. It might be my all-time favorite episode of comically bad TV ever, Jeff. You are correct. That is awesome. And I can't say it now because we're right in the middle of this thing, right? But if you asked me before we started this podcast, what was my favorite ridiculous episode of Walker? Skyjacked. Yeah.
And we've yet to spin it. So it's a legendary episode to us, and we can't wait to get into it.
10.
So... yeah,
it'll be interesting to see. Well, I've seen a lot of Walker by then, so how does it stack up?
Yeah, Jeff, you definitely know your Walker.
Yeah, he's on the level.
Props to you. I was also on Instagram here, and this came up in my feed because we follow hashtag Clarence Gilliard on the Roundhouse Roulette page, and Geek Broll says, tonight I watched Theo from Die Hard, aka Clarence Gilliard, as a singing cheeseburger on the episode on the TV show Riptide. And I was like, what is happening here? Evan, can you describe what this looks like?
It's a young Clarence Gilliard paying his dues in the world of acting. He's wearing a giant cheeseburger.
And his hat is like the pickle.
Yeah, you wouldn't have a pickle on the outside of the bun, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, not sure.
Now, I was like, man, I haven't even heard of this show, Riptide. Have you guys heard of that show?
No.
So apparently take place in the early 80s, and it was like some detectives that worked out of a boat called the Riptide,
Oh, man. So this is like Miami Vice, West Coast?
Exactly.
Nice.
And I was like, well, hopefully I can find this episode, because they even said what episode he was in. Wouldn't you know that it's streaming free on Plex? I'm just going to play the beginning. You know how they usually, back in the day, they do kind of a teaser of what the episode would be before it started? This one perfectly does that. And that's all we need to watch.
Cheeseburger in paradise.
We're very settled.
Okay.
Your son doesn't have any talent?
And he thinks he's Michael Jackson. I'm sure you'll provide our clients with a safe and quiet ride.
Hey, man, you're looking at the guy who invented those words.
What's in the vial? Forget it. Don't answer that.
All right, spread them, turkeys.
I like my with red and tomato.
This is absolutely worthless now.
If I don't get it, everybody dies.
Every one of them suckers is dead as a doornail.
What happens if this plan doesn't work?
Nothing.
Ooh, the hamburger platter sounds delicious.
Cheeseburger in paradise.
Well, he must have left in an awful hurry then.
That hamburger.
Wow.
Amazing.
Yeah. So we just saw Clarence Gilliard in a hamburger costume dancing and singing Cheeseburger in Paradise by Jimmy Buffett.
Now, do you think Jimmy Buffett gave them the rights to that song for that episode?
They were playing it over different kind of music, and it was a cappella, so I wonder what they could get away with.
I don't think the melody was really there either.
But he was singing all the words.
They probably ran it by him.
Yeah, they're like, hey, we'll give you a free cheeseburger, Jimmy. He's like, oh, I love Riptide. You kidding me? You can have it for free. It's my favorite show.
It probably does. Yeah. Oh, my God. Well, that show, one, looks incredible. And two, I think Clarence Gilliard has come a long way.
Anyway, had to press play on that here. Moving on, last podcast, we dealt with the Walker, Texas Ranger pilot movie, which starred a pretty imposing bad guy portrayed by Marshall Teague, a established bad guy actor. And our Walker Strader, Adam Lauritsen, did an amazing picture of him and kind of did like a mashup with the song I Wear My Sunglasses at Night. And so, we popped it up on the socials, and we heard from the man himself.
He says, check out this absolutely funny podcast with Roundhouse Pod talking Walker, Texas Ranger, episode 1 Riot, 1 Ranger, and sometimes you just got to wear sunglasses at night. So he's clearly digging the Walkerstration.
Yeah, I mean, his character wore shades the whole time. It was awesome, including during a nighttime interrogation, in which Adam expertly captured in the illustration this last week. But he put the lyrics to I Wear My Sunglasses at Night behind him. But he also reached out to us on Facebook, and he's like, thanks for tagging me on Twitter. Awesome graphic, and definitely enjoyed the podcast. On to the two-parter, which we're about to start talking about in this podcast here. Because, dude, he also stars in this. Another bad guy who also stars in this episode, Wayne Perret, started following us on the Instagram.
Love it.
We've got social media contact with the two bad guys in this episode.
We're really doing things right here.
I think we need to do a Roundhouse Roundtable with these guys. That's what I would like.
Absolutely.
We're putting it out here right now. I think we need to have a roundtable. Marshall, let us know what's up.
Lastly, we'd like to give a little shout out to Christopher out in Washington, who he just purchased one of our lovely injection molded action figures of Chuck Norris from his Karate Commando days. So thank you so much for supporting another month of our web hosting. And anyone else who's interested in getting a tiny 6-inch Chuck Norris, maybe check out our page.
RoundhouseRoulette.com.
You got it.
Chris, thanks for the support, man. You might not know that you supported the podcast. You might just were looking for a really cool Chuck Norris action figure, but thank you for keeping the lights on here, man.
Lovely. Well, we've got a lot to cover this week, so let's get on into it. If you're watching along at home and don't want any spoilers, hit that pause button and watch Walker Season 6, Episode 6, Last of a Breed, Part 1, and then come right back to us. Welcome back. Let's dig into this beast. This episode originally aired on November 1st, 1997. It opens on the Texas Ranger Museum and Hall of Fame.
Hall of Fame. I love it.
Just so you know, this is a real place.
Is this actually filmed there, though?
That I don't know, but it is in Waco, Texas.
That checks out. So this has got to be a field trip, right, for the kids?
It's a field trip, but there's no other chaperone. So it's a bunch of, 12-year-old kids and one Texas Ranger. That's easily the worst field trip ever.
Well, you don't know that he had like an awkward drive with them for an hour and 45 minutes. You
don't think he drove the bus?
Yeah, he definitely drove the bus.
He definitely drove the bus. So this is a super important field trip that these kids do each year, that school does each year. And these middle schoolers go to the Texas Ranger Museum and Hall of Fame 2 hours away. And Walker goes around and, he basically is he's their docent at the museum. And, they're super into it. They're like, wow, gosh, this is incredible. And CD's picture's on the wall.
Yeah, I noticed his picture. I was like, oh, CD's in the Hall of Fame. Wonder if we're going to get around to that.
So one of the kids is like, do you know any of these Rangers? He's like, matter of fact, I do. He turns around to this shrine to CD.
I don't know. If you're going to do like a tribute to somebody, right, in a museum, do you take the picture of them yesterday or when they did all the cool stuff?
When they did all the cool stuff, which is not what they did here.
Yeah, they literally went to like CD's Bar and Grill and said, hey, can you put your uniform back on? We need a picture for the Hall of Fame. If you have Elvis in your museum, right, you're not going to do the Fat Elvis style. You're going to do,
I think that's when he was at his best, though. Anyway, so basically Walker decides to tell campfire stories to these kids. I'm like, what was life like for a Texas Ranger? And he's like, well, early in the days of Texas Rangers, some were even outlaws. Really, mister? Yeah.
Gee willikers.
Yeah. And let me take this priceless journal artifact off the wall and read from it for you.
Right. This is from an old Texas Ranger, Hayes Cooper. And this is his journal.
So Walker pulls this journal off the wall and he's like, wow, you're so curious about Rangers. Let me read from this journal for you. And as soon as he pulls this journal off the wall, it's like this one of several transitions in this. Now, Bob, you're the transition connoisseur. Thoughts?
The only bad thing I'll say is dated. But other than that, outstanding.
Yeah.
What you're saying is that this episode is a period piece, but perhaps it's a period piece for the 90s?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I definitely remember you could take photos and make these kind of fake drawings from the photos in like MS Paint or something. There was like a real basic effect.
Right. But the technology just wasn't there when computers first hit. And that's kind of when we're watching this show when it was done. And I think the effect was called crystallize.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
That sounds really familiar.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
Well, anyways, as soon as the clunky crystallization transition happens, we are then transported into a set for a Western town.
We're basically in Back to the Future Part 3.
Yep. So, yeah, we're in this frontier town, and in rides this handsome stranger in a buckskin suit, and he's got a horse, a cowboy hat, and really long-haired wig.
No duster, though, huh?
No, nope.
He kind of saunters into the saloon, as you do, goes up to the bar and orders a little shot of whiskey.
Yeah, and those of you following along at home, if you're curious, and if you follow along with the obscure stat of bar names on our stats page, this one is called the Empire Saloon, so that will be thrown up there.
So, yeah, Hayes Cooper, a.k.a. Chuck Norris, walks up to the bar in his buckskin suit, gets his shot of whiskey, and did he drink it down or what?
He did. He at least took a sip.
So he's a real connoisseur of that whiskey.
And there's a guy like right next to him, and Hayes Cooper kind of slides a reward poster over next to him and says, essentially, is this going to be the easy way or the hard way?
Yeah, does he say that, or does he say...
Dead or alive?
Yeah.
So this guy's like, boy, the last bounty hunter, he got shot in the gut, and my mama just died. And Hayes Cooper, he's all like, well, I got to take you in, man. So it's 5,000 buckaroonies if I bring you in. And he's like, well, last guy died, so let's do this. And they shoot out, and Chuck Norris's character, Hayes Cooper, he shoots the guy, I guess, in the shoulder. Not sure.
The guy's like, why didn't you just kill me, Hayes Cooper? And he's like, then I'd have to carry you over to get the reward.
Yeah.
Right. So he walks him over there, and as he's walking the guy over to the sheriff's station at the Mercantile, the general store, we see a humble family loading in some grain for their farm. And it's clear that they're not able to pay their bills at this point. But, they're good on their word. They're good folk.
They're good folk. They hit a bit of a rough patch. That's all.
And the woman who runs the Mercantile, she was looking at Chuck Norris when he rode into town with some serious eagle eyes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, she was checking out that buckskin.
Oh, for sure. And as this guy's loading grain, we look over across at the local deed agent's office. And sitting on his porch is the deed agent and then this really creepy dude. And we know he's a bad guy because he's dressed in all black, wearing a flat-brimmed hat, and holding a snake.
Yeah, just
Subtle.
for some reason.
Interesting character trait. I was wondering if that would be relevant at any point in this episode. No. For those herpetologists out there, he's holding a Western hognose snake, which is a pretty legit snake. I'm into that.
If we hit pause right now and you were to guess, we're going to deal with the rattlesnake killer or mortgages for the rest of the episode, what would you guess?
I would think the rattlesnake killer myself. That's just me, though.
It is an episode of Walker, so yeah, I'm with Bob.
Well, we'll see what we get.
So they're looking across, and basically we get this whole convoluted plot about how this bad guy named Silas is trying to buy up all the land because the railroad's coming through soon, and they're going to pay a pretty penny. And he's basically trying to make people default on their loans. And he's bought up everyone else's land, except for this one dude, Mr. Wilson. And he really wants Wilson's land because everyone else's land is useless because the railroad doesn't want to go through. But he paid good money to see the railroad plans. And they go right through Wilson's property. So he really wants Wilson to default on his loan so he can come in and buy his property. It's extremely convoluted and complicated, and basically, I will translate it in Walker terms. Silas bad, Wilson good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're loading their grain apparently into this local trading post, and the woman who is eyeing Walker's character, Hayes Cooper, comes out, and pretty much she goes, Tom, great to see you guys, and she's like, oh, you guys have till the end of the month to pay me back, and they're like, nope, we're going to do it in a week.
They're filled with pride, and as we know, pride comes before the fall. I don't know if the mortgage guy tells him to go rough him up or just tells him to go intimidate them.
No, he pretty much tells him to go rough him up, right?
One and the same, Bob.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of implied.
Yeah, like the town mortgage broker bad guy across the street is watching this whole thing unfold like, they're unloading their goods to get money so that they can pay their mortgage. I can't have that, So he sends his two roughnecks over.
Well, he sends John C. Reilly with a couple other guys. John C. Reilly being the leader. And he proceeds to start cutting into his bags of seed.
Well, he's just inspecting them.
Yeah, he's just making sure it's good. But Tom, he's had enough.
Yeah. Tom starts throwing around some serious haymakers.
Yeah, he does.
He's laying these guys out.
And it's about time because we were waiting for it.
Yeah, it's, I would say, gratuitous.
Yeah, it's
awesome. Epic punch sound effects while this family man dad is like decking ruffians.
Yeah, so he's holding his own, but then, it's 3 or 4 guys, so, they eventually start just wailing on him.
Right. And in fact, his son Jeffrey, actually, he was like 7 years old, is like, I'll help you out, Dad.
Yeah. Don't hit my paw.
Don't the bad guys like hit the kid or something like that?
They just kind of throw him away, I think.
Okay, just toss him like a tumbleweed.
I wish the episode would. He's pretty rough.
You know what? I gotta say that Jeffrey, the 7-year-old, is definitely my favorite part of this episode.
He's basically telling you all of the plot.
Yeah, because he's got no filter and he just says what he thinks.
Exactly. That's why I
allows
like
us to know what's going on.
Yeah, he's basically telling us how it is.
And he was trying to get in on the first fight, so props to him, Jethro.
Yeah, for sure. I think his name is Jeb.
we've
is
had
that-
this wrong?
So, anyways, this fight breaks out, and Hayes Cooper's just leaving the sheriff's office with a hefty wad of cash, and he's like, a fight going down. Okay. And so he gets into it, and we think that Tom Wilson's about to meet his maker, but in comes this silent stranger and starts laying people out with a few more haymakers. You know, we see a knife fall to the ground, and we know that the knife is going to come into play. And yeah, the main thug picks up the knife and lunges at Hayes Cooper. But Hayes Cooper's got a little bit of an advance warning from the lady in charge of the mercantile. And she says, "Watch out, mister." And it appears to have no effect on him, but the bad guy still misses with his knife and just grazes his side, allowing him to dispatch the bad guy quite soundly.
And so pretty much Chuck Norris has some opportunities to use some of the punch sound effect budget.
So, you know, obviously Tom Wilson and family are quite grateful to this silent stranger for helping them in this altercation. Meanwhile, Silas and crew are watching from across the street, and they're like, who is this person? They're very disappointed that their thugs got taken out. But Tom Wilson's like, you know, I'm Tom Wilson. This is my wife and my son. You should come have dinner with us. And he's like, offer that's really hard to refuse.
Now, do we mention that he also took a knife, though, to the side? He got a little cut.
Yeah, he got a little cut. And, you know, we get to see shirtless Chuck Norris pretty soon into this episode. And he's getting stitched up by Mrs. Wilson.
As he's getting fixed up, and Tom is there, also shirtless, but not nearly Chuck Norris. I mean,
Yeah, no total gyms for him.
but they show that he's got these scars, right? And then, of course, the little kid, Jeb, shows up to fill in the plot, as Jeb does. Did you fight in the war, mister? My dad killed, what do you say? My dad killed
He killed 50 Rebs.
what side did you fight on? And then Walker doesn't say
Didn't
anything.
answer. Yeah, he doesn't answer. Wow.
Do the math, right? If he's from Texas. Now, we know that the Wilsons are from Ohio. We learned that, so...
Well, so this is really actually Walker, Texas Ranger's way of healing the wounds of the Civil War.
Yes, exactly. Right. We used to be on different sides, but now we have a common goal.
Now we can break bread.
Yeah, it's the real deal.
Yeah.
So, Hayes Cooper learns that Tom Wilson's got 40 head of cattle up in the hills, and he's got to take them down into town the next day, or 2 days from then. And, you know, the next morning he's going to try to take them down from the hills all on his own. Because, again, Jeb butts in and says, our helper got beat up. And so Silas is trying to undermine this whole operation and trying to make the Wilsons default on their loan. So, you know, he beat up Tom Wilson's helper, and now Tom Wilson's got to go solo trying to get all these cattle out of the hills, which is a big job.
I mean, I've only driven cattle a few times in my life, but yeah, the only person that could probably do it physically is Walker, Texas Ranger. Now, this other character portrayed by, you know, Walker, Texas Ranger, I'm not sure if he could do it. So obviously this Wilson guy is way over his head, right?
Yeah, for sure. That night, we see Hayes Cooper sleeping out in the barn, and he's woken up by screaming. And apparently it's Tom Wilson screaming, having some sort of flashback dreams from the war. But also we get the voiceover from the wife explaining what's happening to the child. Is he okay? No, he's just having flashbacks from the war. He'll be okay. And then Hayes Cooper just goes back to sleep. Anyways, the next morning, Hayes Cooper, he saddles up with Tom Wilson and decides to help them bring his cattle down out of the hills. And, you know, he's like, man, I have nothing to pay you. I can't really help you there, man. And Hayes Cooper's all like, well, your wife's cooking is payment enough. So they basically drive the cattle down out of the hills, and, you know, there's a lot of whistling from horseback, and, you know, I assume that, you know, this is the real deal. I don't know.
Yeah, it was a great montage of bringing in the cattle.
So anyways, they bring all the cattle in, and one of Silas's guys is waiting in the bushes, creeping around, and he overhears, because again, sound travels really well on that ranch, and he hears him say, well, we got every head of them. We're going to pay off our mortgage now. And he rushes off. And to that, I would say there is no cover in this landscape whatsoever.
They would have seen him.
100%.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he rushes off anyways. And, you know, Hayes and Jeb then have a little bit of a heart-to-heart heading into town. they're buying some supplies, and they got to go to the General Mercantile. This is where they meet Sarah Rose, who not only is a smoke show, but she's available. Why is she available, Jeb?
Her husband died.
There you go. Good job.
But what blew me away next was she goes, "Oh, that was 5 years ago."
Yeah, she's like, don't worry about that.
Yeah.
I don't remember how we get to it, but this is where I found out that the bad guy is Irish. Did you guys pick up on that? Like, the main bad guy is like, all of a sudden, I'm listening to his accent. I'm like, I still don't know if it is Irish or maybe Scottish or just bad.
No, Bob, you're absolutely right. This episode continues the legacy of Walker of absolutely terrible Irish accents. There's no reason for Silas Marner for Silas, whatever his name is, to have an Irish accent.
It was Silas Flanagan.
Oh, well, there it is.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
I'll pull it up
O'Leary.
here. Is it Silas O'Leary?
His name is Silas Bedeau.
Oh,
okay. Yeah, that's a classic Irish name.
Yeah, no. There's no reason for him to have it. And I haven't gone back to listen, but I don't think he had one in the first scene.
First scene, right?
So it just came out of nowhere. Anyways, the actor who plays him is named Ed Lauder. He was born in New York, so not Irish. And he also starred in a show called Grandpa's Place that everyone should go check out on YouTube. Just throwing it out there.
We will put a link to an episode. It's like a children's TV show from hell. And it has a cameo from Dean Cain 10 years after Superman. It's amazing. I mean, it's quite the time capsule.
I believe the term is nightmare fuel.
Yes.
It's kind of like Lamb Chops Play Along from Hell.
Yep. That's pretty accurate right there.
Yeah. We'll definitely be sharing that around.
Anyways, yeah, no, good catch, Bob. I don't understand the Irish accent, but it happened and it's canon now. So there you go. Yeah. So this is Hayes Cooper meeting Sarah Rose. A few little sparks flying there. Mm-hmm. And Silas is all like, "I see you're in Mr. Wilson's stagecoach." And he's like, "Yeah, I'm working for him now." And he's like, "You got to know that he's a loser." And then he asks Hayes Cooper when Tom Wilson's bringing the cattle into town, which I would have thought Hayes Cooper would say none of your business, but he's like, "Oh, tomorrow." Then he rides off.
We got him right down by the house, just a half a mile down the road.
They're all in a pen, so we're ready to roll in the morning.
Totally unprotected, by the way, unguarded.
So that night, instead of nightmares and screaming from Mr. Wilson, you hear gunshots and cows wailing.
Yeah, the Foley death cow murder spree.
Foley was, they stepped up to the challenge here.
Right.
And Tom Wilson and Hayes Cooper, they rush on down to the pen, but it's too late.
They're dead. They're all dead.
He's basically like, "It's game over, man. Game over." So basically, it just feels hopeless for Tom Wilson, you know? He's like, "Man, I mean, ballistic forensics didn't exist back in those days, so impossible to prove who shot the cattle." So, you know, he's like, "Well, I guess we got to default on our loan and move out of town."
It couldn't be the guy who was threatening me all this time. Probably not him, but...
Well, even if it was, you can't prove it, you know? And also, we should say it, the sheriff in that town, total pushover. He's like, "Nothing to see here. Let's just move on."
Yeah, they did illustrate that he was just going along with the program there.
Yeah, for sure. So, you know, it feels pretty hopeless at this point. But the next day, we see Hayes Cooper go into the deeds office. And he's like, "How much does Tom Wilson owe?" And he's like, "Oh, his next mortgage payment's $180." And he's like, "No, how much does he actually owe?" And he's like, "About $4,500. And Hayes Cooper, if you guys recall, the reward poster was for $5,000. So he gave most of his $5,000 to pay off Tom Wilson's debts and give him the deed.
Wow. And this is where I was like, normally in a show like this, what you do is you portray Chuck Norris's character, Hayes Cooper, as like a roughneck, and then you round off the edges by the end to make him relatable.
Yeah, no, they got right to it.
Yeah, they didn't even, they were just like, "Oh, he's a bounty hunter, but he's a great guy."
He kills you with kindness.
Yeah.
He bought the farm, didn't he?
Literally.
He truly bought the farm. And He basically rides back to deliver the deed to Tom Wilson just as Silas is gloating.
What was funny about this too is like earlier on in the episode, they wouldn't take an extra 2 weeks to pay their bill at the feed lot. They wouldn't accept help from anybody. But now Walker just bought all their land, just gave it to them. They're like, oh, awesome. I mean, they're appreciative.
But no, it's Chuck Norris. He didn't ask permission, and you don't deny charity from Chuck Norris.
Anyways, Silas, he sees the deed and he's like, what the hell? I'm super pissed. So he rides into town and he has to send a telegraph. And he wants to send a telegraph to Rudd Kilgore, which, let's face it, we know that's a bad dude.
That's a great name.
Oh, yeah. Awesome.
So we're like, man, what's going to happen there? But meanwhile, Mr. Wilson offers a partnership to Hayes Cooper. He's like, man, that river over there, it's got the sweetest water. And the breeze that blows through those trees, it's the sweetest breeze. And the sun over there, it's great. And the soil, it's rich. It's the best part on the farm. Don't ask me why my house isn't over there, but it's great.
We were just lazy.
Meanwhile, Mrs. Wilson is she's doing a little matchmaking here, and they set up a little bit of a dinner.
Oh, this was cringe.
Oh, come on.
Dude, it was so romantic.
Yeah, so romantic.
They have a dinner date, and unexpected company.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
Sarah Rose.
Right. And Hayes Cooper didn't know that she was coming, but, Mrs. Wilson kind of picked up on the vibe that we got this like bounty hunter with a heart of gold and the widow of 5 years. And these guys, they need to knock boots.
For sure. And if the viewers didn't quite get it, our little bud there, he fills us in.
Yeah.
Jeb.
Little Jeb, no filter Jeb. He's like, boy, Mr. Cooper, he was talking about you all the way back and forth from the town. He's really into you. Super awkward.
And he's like, I'm not sure if Chuck Norris's acting abilities will be able to portray this, so I'm just going to say it out loud for you viewers.
Yeah, we're just going to put it all out there.
He has the feelings for you. But, that dinner date, it turns into multiple dates. And over the next...
Montage.
Yeah, montage, which either was hours or weeks. Not clear. He woos Sarah Rose. And he woos her in some traditional ways, in which they go down to the stream and they try some fishing with bamboo poles, which, not successful.
That kind of reminded me of the scene of Alex and Walker fishing. Did that not?
Exactly, for sure. So they do some fishing down by the stream, and then they've got a picnic. And Sarah made him some chicken that is the best chicken he ever ate.
I take it back. This is my favorite moment in the episode.
Yeah. And what says absolute romance more than unintentional contact? And in this case, it's both of them reaching for a piece of her chicken in the picnic basket. Sorry, in the picnic basket.
Right. They're like, hey, run out and get some KFC so we can put it in this basket. And he was like, your chicken's so good. And he's reaching for another piece, and their hands touch in the basket on top of the greasy chicken.
It's the Old West. Anything goes.
And that's when they decide to throw down.
Yeah, and they lay it on each other pretty heavy there, and there's some serious kissing going on. Now here's the question: who got that last piece of chicken?
Walker.
Well, yeah, last man standing.
Do you think he pulls it out and then puts it on a fish hook and tries to catch a fish with it?
No, he ate the chicken. He went in and got the fish with his hands.
Kodiak bear style.
Yeah. Your chicken grease hides the smell of the human pheromones.
Oh man. Okay. I should also say that occasionally there's some weird voiceovers from Chuck Norris from Walker, and he's basically like, "Oh yeah, things are going really great for them. Hayes Cooper would have never thought that he'd fall in love, but he did, and his life was as good as it ever could have been, right at that moment."
And we're like, we know what happens from there.
You're right. Just as he's basically asking Sarah Rose to marry him and make him a proper man, Rudd Kilgore shows up on the front steps of her mercantile, and basically he's got his whole crew there. And Rudd Kilgore's crew, pretty epic. It's a bunch of just like seedy dudes who just sleep out in the desert. The star of them, of course, is played by Wayne Perret, who we know as LaRue. In this case, Wayne Perret is playing to be generous, we'll call him a culturally ambiguous character.
Yes.
Kind of like a drunkard bad guy, right?
Yep, with a milky eye and a scar on his face. And he, again, 100% into this role, like totally leaning into this role.
Fully embraced. And Rudd Kilgore, portrayed by Marshall Teague.
Yeah.
Love it.
And he is stoic as hell, man. He's on it. I love it.
And they have a little bit of a showdown where Hayes Cooper, he's put his gun down. We even saw him put his gun down as he decided to give up his bounty hunting days and become a noble farmer.
Yeah, they're like, oh, let's have a shot of him leaving his gun at home. That's always a good idea.
Right. So Rudd Kilgore's like, well, I want to shoot you, but we got to do this fair and square. So he asked this right-hand man, Wayne Perret, to give him his gun. And definitely best scene in the episode, though, right?
The chicken, you can't be the chicken love scene.
Okay, that's the most. That's the most
close second.
over the top. But anyways, Wayne Perret comes over and puts his gun in Chuck Norris's waistband, and then whispers in his ear, "It pulls a little to the left."
Yes. Now, if you're actually going to shoot him, would you take that advice?
From that dude, I would.
Yeah, probably would, because he wants someone to die. He doesn't care who.
So there's this tense standoff between Rudd Kilgore and Chuck Norris's Hayes Cooper, and they're both holding their hands over their guns, and we're like, is this going down now? Like, Hayes Cooper just found love, and is he going to kill in front of his Sarah Rose to defend her and his happiness, or is he going to leave all this anger behind? And instead of his trigger hand going for his gun, his left hand slowly goes for his piece and hands it back to Wayne Pierre's Codroza character. And he bows out of the duel. And then Marshall Teague's Rudd Kilgore is like, I don't even know what the fuss is about. And they all kind of just laugh it off and leave.
He's like, man, you're not even worth the bullets. And he pulls off.
Once Hayes Cooper found love, he wasn't going to let go.
No, man, he's a peaceful man. So, he's like, all right, well, that was close. And Sarah's like, wow, that was cool. So let's do this thing. Our lives won't be full of tragedy.
Yeah. What could go wrong? Everything's great now.
Yeah, it's pretty much like you defeated them.
So they're riding back to their homestead. And I should say we also saw, I don't know, earlier on, we saw Hayes Cooper doing some sketches of the Wilson family on their porch with some voiceover.
He was sitting on the porch drawing them like really well in black ink.
It looks like a coloring book. It's hilarious. But they're riding back into their homestead, and they're like, well, I guess my maid of honor is going to be Mrs. Wilson. And Hayes Cooper's like, this is a great conversation. Tom Wilson, I guess, will be my best man. It's like, yeah, you guys have pretty small lives.
I think they said life doesn't get any better than this.
All right, and they're like walking the grounds of where he's going to build his house, and Hayes Cooper's like, this is where our bedroom's going to be.
But they hear some gunshots, and they're like, what the hell's going on? And that's because Rudd Kilgore, even though they weren't really into killing a defenseless Hayes Cooper, they're very much into killing a defenseless Wilson family, which they basically do.
And it's essentially like a Western drive-by.
Yeah, they come in and, little Jeb, he's like, pa, pa, and he goes running to the house, but he gets cut down first. And, Tom Wilson's like, what? And he busts out his rifle. He gets gunned down, but he's got a couple more left in him. And he takes out one dude with him. But the entire family's just like mercilessly mown down.
For some reason, I was kind of shocked to see that Jeb got shot, the little kid, and he got shot twice.
Yeah, I would have thought that the kid would have survived and then Hayes Cooper would have raised him as his own or something.
Yeah.
But, at this point, you're like, well, one of them has to be alive. But Kilgore and crew ride off as soon as they came. And by the time Cooper and Sarah get there, all three of them are dead. And Hayes Cooper's got this look on his face like it's game time. And then it's to be continued.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a two-parter.
I think there's some narrative over it that was like, Hayes Cooper died that day.
Right. He was born 2 days prior, and then he died that day.
Yeah.
I mean, the love of his life is still around.
Yeah, he's still got that going for him.
I'm going to throw it out there. Probably not for long. All right. Well, that about sums up this episode. We'd love to give a shout out to our friend and collaborator, Adam Lauritsen, who's been drawing the incredible Walkerstrations on our social media. Be sure to check out his other art on Instagram at @ImaginationRunAmok. When we come back, it'll be time for us to each rate Last of a Breed Part 1 on a scale of 0 to 10 boots to the face, resulting in our patented Roundhouse Roulette episode ranking, the complete results of which are available on our website, roundhouseroulette.com. Don't you dare go away.
Oh, hey, podcast listener. Welcome to the Roundhouse Roulette Hall of Fame. Settle down, I'll tell you a story of how this podcast got its start. Let's flash back to the year 2004 and the sights, sounds, and smells of a one Brendan Bob Leahy's UMass Lowell dorm room.
Thanks to the NBC Universal merger, I can now show a Walker Texas Ranger clip anytime I want for no reason at all. All I have to do is pull my Walker Texas Ranger lever right here. Let's give it a shot and see how it works.
Oh, Conan. Doors unlocked.
Hey, Bob, I wanted to introduce you to my brother Evan, who's checking out the campus this weekend.
Oh, hey, what's up, man?
Adam wasn't very popular in high school.
Evan brought with him the newly released Walker Texas Ranger final season on DVD. Would you be interested in savoring some sweet roundhouse kicks?
Does a white buffalo statue shed tears?
Are you going to be Adam's friend? He lost most of his grade school friends once they saw him riding a pink girl's bike in his Boy Scout uniform.
Bro!
Ever since he's been compensating with his Walker Texas Ranger stuff, I only watch it to help him compensate for his lack of testosterone.
Evan, I've had enough.
Dude, you just broke my DVD player. How are we going to watch Walker now?
What a dilemma we had. How did we ever come to deliver the light of Walker Texas Ranger to the world? Tune back in next time to find out. Meanwhile, if you listeners would like to join us in our mission, please share the pod with a friend or leave us a kind review wherever you get your podcast. Likewise, if you'd like to help us keep the lights on here at headquarters, check out our shirts, posters, and freshly cleaned action figures at roundhouseroulette.com, or join the fun and become a Ranger on our Patreon page. Most importantly, though, we thank you for listening.
Well, welcome back. Trying to figure out what y'all thought of this episode.
If I take this out of the context of Walker Texas Ranger, I guess it was amusing. But right off the bat, I was like, okay, they're going to have CD play some other character, because there's other shows that did this, and they would have the entire cast play random characters that didn't know each other. The woman in the store, I was like, is that Alex? And I'm like, no, it's not Alex. And then I quickly realized that the reason they couldn't do that, they couldn't have Trevette back then. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, you think the show thought about that?
Yeah,
No.
I mean, maybe not. But right away, I was just like, okay, they're not going to have any other characters. Just going to be Walker. And sure, they had a cool bad guy. The random Irish accent was fine. I mean, if you had like this similar pacing and like a few more fights and it was present day normal Walker, you could have made this episode great. But yeah, I think these are throwaways. I hate to say it. I hope maybe the next part's better. But I'm throwing a 3 at this one. That's
Wow,
it.
Bob.
Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty low.
I did like the way it was shot though, and I like that classic Western look. I thought like they did a pretty good job actually in that
Right.
regard. But that's not Walker Texas Ranger. This is Hayes Cooper. I don't give a shit about Hayes Cooper.
Bob, you absolutely said it. So the name of the TV show is Walker Texas Ranger. Yeah. The only Walker Texas Ranger we got in this is Walker leading a group of adolescent children around a museum and reading to them. This episode, absolute garbage. This one,
Oh no.
you know, I would have given it an extra point because Silas Bedeau had that super dope snake early on, and I was like, is he gonna like poison someone with a snake or anything? No, he's just super lame and tells other people to do stuff. So I'm being very generous and giving this a 2, and that's only because of Wayne Perret's performance. That's it.
And he was only in the episode for like 4 minutes.
Exactly. And that did it for me. But otherwise, this thing, avoided at all costs. It's not an episode of Walker, Texas Ranger. 0 roundhouse kicks, 1 scuffle, no explosions, no vehicle chases. Leave it alone. Anyways, all right, so I give this one a 2 because I think it's garbage.
Wow.
Adam had an 8 written down. Now he's trying to weasel his way out of it.
No, I mean,
It's not Walker, Texas Ranger. It's Hayes
not.
Cooper. And what is that?
it's not. And I think someone has to do it. I don't want to be the guy to do it, but I'm going to give this one a 1.
Ooh, all right. Okay.
And I only am brave enough to do that because you guys went with where you went. But yeah, this one really isn't an episode of Walker, Texas Ranger. And the most promising things that we're looking forward to is when the bad guys came in, you were like, yes, let's see it happen.
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah.
you think at first you think, oh, well, Silas is the bad guy. Because I knew Marshall Teague and Wayne Perret were going to be in this episode. I'm like, when are they going to bring them in? And they didn't bring him in until the tail end. And we didn't even get to see them do anything crazy until, I guess, well, they killed a kid. But
Right before that, there was that cool scene where they're all like sleeping and like just hanging out. And they come in, they're like, all right, let's go. And they're
Right.
like chugging whiskey. They're like, yeah, let's go.
that was, I was like,
Mess some
yes.
people up. Let's get hammered. All right.
Right. And this is the Walker we want. Now, obviously, part 2 is going to rank higher than this. It has to.
I hope so. But yeah, I think it has to. You're right. Yeah.
I mean, and that usually isn't the case. Usually these 2-parters, they start off hot and then it's nonsensical the next side.
Unless we flash back to Walker telling the story and someone's trying to hold up the Hall of Fame cash register and he stops that. I don't know. It's going to be hard.
I mean, I'm not expecting a 10. I'm thinking like a 3 or a 4, maybe.
What if, Marshall Teague's hand comes out of the book and starts fighting Chuck Norris in
Right at the
modern
beginning
time?
of the episode. And then
Right.
they jump into separate helicopters and fight each other from different helicopters.
Exactly. He's like, what am I doing in this flying hornet?
I would call a horse-on-horse pursuit to be a car chase. I would consider that a car chase for our stats. Like, I'd be there.
Yeah, you have to.
We have vehicle chase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or a transference.
Yeah. Onto a stagecoach.
Yeah, or horse-to-horse transference.
Yep.
All right, so we could still get these stats up there, but this part 1 was really lacking, and it hurts me to give this one a 1, but I'm going to do it.
That gives this episode, I think, a roundhouse rating of 2 boots to the face. And I think we can all agree that a Walker by any other name does not smell so sweet. But please let us know what you think on social media or by emailing us at roundhouseroulette@gmail.com. Please join us next time when we pick up part 2 of Last of a Breed. In the meantime, share your opinions with us on Facebook and on Instagram at Roundhouse Roulette and on Twitter at @RoundhousePod. And rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your fine podcasts. Thanks for listening, and until next time,
May the
eyes of the Ranger be upon you.
When you're in Texas, look behind you. Oh, 'cause that's where the Ranger's gonna be.